As usual, it'll take a few minutes to get everyone logged in. Yeah. Give it another minute or two and then we'll get started.
I think Audrey is one of the attendees.
Yeah, assuming after we have the vote, we'll bring on whoever we bring on as. Whoever is elected as the student representative will be brought on that after we vote.
All right.
All right. I think we've got most folks here who are planning to attend. So all right, I now call this meeting of South Woodby School Board for District 206 to order. I will pass it over to Marnie Jackson for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Brooke. South Woodby School District would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral homelands, originally known as Chakolchi in Lushootseed, of the Coast Salish peoples. These lands of the lower Skagit, Tulalip, Swinomish, Stillaguamish, and Suquamish, tribes who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial. These people have hunted, fished, and gathered here, who have taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty and their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and with the water. Please join us in expressing our deep respect and gratitude to the Indigenous people of this territory for their enduring care and protection of this land which we occupy and share through the Treaty of Point Elliott signed by 82 tribes in Mukilteo on January 22nd, 1855.
Thank you very much. Just starting out here, just to note, as this is a business meeting, we will be taking public comment on whatever topics the public would like to share with us. Those come in through the form of the Q&A button. At least for me, it's down there at the bottom, right next to the participants button. Comments must be accompanied by first and last name and the area that you're from, Freeland, Langley, Clinton, Coopville, Oak Harbor, wherever that might be. I will read any comments that follow that and come within the time allotted for public comment. There'll be a few more directions on that when we get to that point, but I don't want to, let's not go over it twice. So we have the agenda and the minutes. Do I have a motion in regards to them?
Move to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any comments or discussion to be had about the minutes or agenda? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda and minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay. We just finished an interview with a wonderful candidate for our second student representative to the board on the board position. Three of us were present for that interview, plus three of the voting members plus our other student representative and Dr. Moshe were present for that and had the opportunity to ask the candidate questions. I think that we have a wonderfully strong, talented, exceptional candidate. If anyone else would like to make any comments on about that before we get to the vote, now's the time.
I would like to say that the candidate that we have for the second student representative position is, I believe, not only a good candidate for the position in terms of experience and talent, but also is going to bring a different perspective to the table. So I really approve of what Audrey has already done, and hopefully what she will continue to do on the school board. So I think we have a really good candidate.
Thank you.
And just so that the public understands the process, Brooke, can you clarify whether there were any other applications?
Thank you. I'll actually go through the whole process real briefly. We only had one application, but we did then go through, which included letters of recommendation, transcripts, personal statements, a variety of other details there. And then we did go through an interview process. We asked several questions, had some discussion back and forth. And then the board members who were present went into an executive session and had some more discussion about that, as we do with anyone else appointed to the board. And now we are here to vote on who we would like to bring on to the as the second student representative to the board. We do, as Marnie was getting to, we have one applicant who's Audrey Gamerick, and so we'll have the vote by name, as we would if there were any further applicants. So it will be, I'll be asking one at a time for each person's vote on who they would like to bring on as the second student representative, and that could be none of the applicants. It could be Audrey Gamerick, it could be someone else, although we don't have any other applications.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Okay, if there's no more discussion to be had, we'll move on to the roll call vote. I'll be taking votes for the person to bring on, the applicant to bring on for the second student board member position lasting 2 years. I will begin with our most recent voting member and work upwards, and with myself voting last as board chair. So Marnie Jackson, how do you vote?
Audrey Gamerick,
Ann Johnson, how do you vote?
I vote Audrey Gamerick.
Andrea Downs, how do you vote?
Audrey Gamerick.
Damian Green,
We'll vote for Audrey because anybody that can take and pay attention to all those details has my vote. Thank you.
and I also gladly vote for Audrey Gamerick. Audrey has been voted onto the board unanimously. Congratulations and welcome. Let's bring her on board, please, Mrs. McCarroll. Welcome aboard, Audrey. And congratulations. We'll have you go through your oath of office and then you'll officially be a member of the board.
Okay, should I start right now?
When you're ready.
I, Audrey Louise Gamerick, do hereby solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Washington, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Student Director of the Southby School District, number 206, Island County, State of Washington, to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. And I look forward to hearing more from both of our student representatives as we go through this meeting. We'll move on to the consent agenda. For those watching at home who are unused to this, this is just a group of common things that come up nearly every business meeting that are grouped into a single item for voting. So do I have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
I'll
move
move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
a second.
It's been moved twice and seconded twice. And Mrs. McCarroll can figure out exactly who did what. Is there any discussion to be had on the consent agenda?
May I speak on behalf of the South Woodby High School Game Club?
Absolutely.
So I think that as a member of a club at the South Woodby High School, it's of vital importance to have a diversity of options for students to get involved in different activities that are not just sports. And I think the game club is part of that. We've already had an ultimate Frisbee club and some other clubs been created this year. So this is another one that I think is really important, and it allows more students to have more opportunities. So because of that, I think it's something that the board should support.
I agree with everything you said there, Saul, and I think you said it very well.
And so thanks for bringing our special attention to that item and also pointing to how it changes lives for students. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, we have moved on from the consent agenda. We are now moving to a presentation on the Affordable Housing Committee by Gail Lavasser. Can we bring her on board if we haven't done so already?
I don't see her on here. Gail, if you're on there, if you can
No, I do not
text
see
me
her.
and let me know. Oh, she's logging in right now.
Excellent. But we are a little sooner than the estimate that we gave to her, so I can understand that.
Can you see the presentation on your screen?
Not at the moment.
Okay, let me change. I gotta stop share and reshare. Hold on one second.
There we go. While we're waiting, I'll just note that this is something that was brought to the school district some time ago, and we, Dr. Moshe can speak perhaps a little bit more to the process, but I believe that the district passed it along to Ms. Lavasser because she has expertise in the community and in those areas. And so we're getting an update on the process and progress.
Yes, exactly. We asked Gail to represent the district at the affordable housing meetings that have been taking place. And I asked her to give the board an update, and she happily said she would do that. So once I see her logged in. So once Christy brings her in as a panelist, we can start that slideshow from the beginning, Christy, and
Yep, she should be coming in right now.
Welcome aboard. And thank you very much for joining us and for presenting this.
Well, thank you for having me. I have a snapshot. Let me close this. So the city of Langley held an affordable housing forum and invited myself and others to be a part of it. It's just looking at housing in the city of Langley, so it's not all of South Whidbey. And the primary goal was to identify potential strategies and tools to meet the specific needs for housing affordability in the Langley area. On the next slide, it shows that there were 2 different forums. And do you mind changing the slide, Christy? 150, or excuse me, 100 attendees were at each session. So it was a mix. It wasn't the same 100 each session. And their goal was to bring in a broad representation of employers, developers, county and city planners, nonprofits, community members. There were also people there who successfully had installed affordable housing developments in various areas of the state. So they shared their model. And then after the 2 forums, it disbanded and an affordable housing report was generated. Next slide. Thank you. And this report is 80 pages long, I think. So I've put the link to the white paper for anyone who really wants to learn more about the broad spectrum of what took place in that meeting. Essentially, Langley's not really a lot different than other communities in the state, grown at a far greater rate than there has been increase in people's incomes. And that disparity, between them, I'll just read it, between the median home price and the price that the median household can afford is threatened and displaced lots of residents already. And it's becoming an impediment to attracting working families and support of local businesses. And this inability to attract employees was a big driver for this forum. Next slide. So there was, before the forum, there was data that was gathered from conversations with people, pulling old surveys, and then continuing to utilize some surveys with the people who were at the forum. So this first chart that I chose to share, there's lots that you can dive into if you choose to go follow those links or go onto the City of Langley website. So in 2018, there was a survey conducted by the city planning department about, is there enough housing options for renters? And it was pretty strong no at 76%. This led the question to talking to employers, especially large employees. Do your employees have issues getting housing? And a number of people said yes. 66%. The employers were all Langley-based employers, and they represented 1,391 employees in this pie chart here. On the next slide, there's some of the perspectives and the stories, which is part of what I found really powerful about this forum, was the ability of Mayor Scott to collect information and really listen to what people were seeing in their community. So this Langley employer, felt that the crisis was extreme, and 4 to 5 of their employees couldn't find housing. And by the end of July, they would have to leave. And this was a restaurant. And indeed, they did lose some of their employees due to lack of ability to find a place to live. The other is something that I think we've talked about before. The biggest issue is that people are in long-term rentals, and then the landlord is selling, either because the landlord has hit financial difficulties themselves, or because the market is great for a seller. And this isn't listed here, but other things that were mentioned and things that I've frequently heard too is the Airbnb industry, or the short-term rental industry. And on the next page, we have another statement from the Langley post office, an employee there. She was expressing the same problems that are in the restaurants, and people are moving here thinking that they can get a good job, even something like the postal service, and finding out when they get here that there's no place to live, or maybe learning that before they come, but being optimistic and then, falling short. So he lived in a van, and this gets into what happens to people that live in the vans. Police were checking up, and wasn't at all what he thought when he moved to Whidbey Island to work for the post office. So, and this is COVID related, this next little phrase of this person's story, that, so many employers have more work now, but they can't get the employees to come in for a variety of reasons, but lack of affordable housing makes it even worse. On the next slide is information that was actually shared from Amanda Fisher from Human Resources. As I mentioned before the forum, the leaders of it reached out to lots of different groups to get perspectives about how the lack of affordable housing was affecting their organization or their employees. And so this is just one story of a person who moved here to work and looked for 3 months and finally got a rental. It's a real challenge. And in the meantime, next slide, people are living doubled up. Oh, I don't know why that's there. When you go to the next one, oh no, that didn't show on my computer. That's weird. Sorry about that. I will, on mine, I'll have to send you guys this with the better slide in there. That's funny. Must have been when I attached it to you, Christy. So it's, the next one is the McKinney-Vento.
Well, you can share it, I'm sure, verbally, I hope.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it's just a couple stories. Mary Mitchell was involved in this as well, and spoke about the families that she's been working with who are living in homeless situations. And one thing that really stood out to the committee was a statement that 4 years ago, the number of people, so families with students living in trailers and RVs, was maybe 3 families. And last school year, there were 34 families living in trailers. And so, and that is directly because the families cannot afford the current cost of rent. So they're living in trailers and RVs that are pretty substandard. And then just driving that point home a little bit more, I've shared these numbers before, but last school year, there were 122 school-age kids who experienced homelessness, and 151 of, if you count the community-wide kids, so preschool or maybe some kids who are aware of that aren't enrolled. And that was from 84 households. And the majority of them, are living, as I mentioned, in trailers, but they're also living doubled up. And this is so frequently misunderstood because they have a roof over their head, but the entire family may be living in one room of the house, or it might be uncomfortable because the kids have to always be quiet, or they have different parenting styles than the family that they're living with. In a lot of cases, they don't have dressers for their clothes. Sometimes they don't have access to the household refrigerator because the family that has them really can't afford to share food. So these stories that were shared at the forum really put a face on who this work is about. Why do we need more affordable housing? And it's the teachers, it's the service workers, it's families, it's community members. And even though this was focused on Langley, there really is a problem countywide that mimics this. And Joanne Pellant from Island County Housing Authority she's not with the Housing Authority, she's with the Island County Human Services, but works in the housing department. And she gave a presentation at this as well, and spoke about seeing the same issues up and down the island. And so the slide that I'll have to send to you is, what's next? So after the committee disbanded, it was very much a let's just dive deep into the needs and understand them better, and really validify and put some data behind, quantify that this is a problem. So what the goal is to just stop studying the issue now. We know it's an issue, and start creating partnerships and policies that get homes built, affordable homes. There's an ad hoc committee, at least one's going now, with the plan for more, working with developers and ideas to see what can be done, whether it's the tiny house community or building duplexes, just what can we do different to create affordable housing. City of Langley is making grant applications specifically for that, for affordable housing. So they have one pending now for $70,000, which I know is a drop in the bucket, but it's a start. And then I have 4 links here that are successful models across the country where community and organizations have come together to figure out to do what they can do together that they can't do alone. Some of them are links of how school properties were turned into affordable housing areas, which is something that a number of the people at the City of Langley would love to see. But they're also just, and I shouldn't say but, and they're full of just innovative ideas of how organizations can work together with local agencies and government agencies and developers to try to improve the affordable housing crisis. Then the last thing that's on the slide you cannot see is a link to the full forum presentation, and that's 85 slides. But it has details of the presentations that were given by the various stakeholders that were there, and it also has the transcripts on the white page. There's a lot of the transcripts of the community members who asked questions and had input. So you can take a really deep dive into this if you'd like to.
Thank you very much for sharing that information with us. It's good to hear what at least one of the communities nearby is doing within the district. As you noted in the presentation, this has definitely been an issue for us hiring teachers, and clearly if families can't afford to live here, it's going to be a problem for us to maintain students.
Exactly.
I don't think it's the whole problem, but it's certainly a problem. Were there any comments or questions from the board? Oh, Dr. Moshe.
I'm sorry, Brooke, but Gail, can you just speak to the students who are experiencing homelessness? You mentioned it, but again, it's a significant piece of the board's concern given the number of students experiencing homelessness combined with having been out of school for 18 months. So can you just touch on the work that you've been doing for those families?
Yes. So it's always hard to talk about what we're doing now without at least briefly mentioning last year. The the need to pivot and stay connected with kids really turned into a huge emphasis of finding out what basic needs they were missing, which, started with the internet and the cell phones so that there could be communication, since we were all staying away from each other, and connecting those families to the resources in the community that were also pivoting and not providing their resources in the way that they normally do. And so, you think about any of us who, well, I'll just use myself, I'm gainfully employed, I have stable housing, I have family support, and it was challenging to navigate because there wasn't anything that was really on autopilot. I had to think about where to go for, we had thought about how are we going to get our groceries out, or do we wash them? So many things we were all thinking about all the time that I found challenging. And what we found with the families we were working with, especially those that didn't have permanent housing, is that it exasperated folks, to the point of initially many of those kids just didn't even connect with school because it was too hard. I mean, it was really too hard. It wasn't an attitude, it was too hard. And while the family was in the middle of chaos and trying to be well, and especially in the beginning, there was so much fear of getting sick. And I find some of that fear, I mean, not that it shouldn't be there, but some of that fear, that crisis, that trauma that came from, how are we going to get our food now? Can we stay doubled up here? Because the people here are worried that maybe we're going to get sick and we're going to get them sick. And a lot of people had to move out of their doubled up situations. And in the district, we kept people enrolled even that moved far out of district boundaries because of remote learning. So, some of that was an advantage, but I bring it up because then the work with those kids had to really deepen, and connections in that community had to get to know the liaison in the neighboring district or the faraway district and work with them to hope that they could help get these kids connected to resources, because they're still literally our kids because they're in our district, but they weren't living in our community. So we had no expertise about where they could get food there, or clothing, or social, emotional, or mental, or even physical health care. So it really broadened the scope of work and the partnerships that needed to happen with all the other services that wrap around the kids. So, fast forward now, we did lose some of the homeless kids. Some of them moved across the country. Mary Mitchell is still in contact with a lot of them, a lot. So a lot of kids for us. So we lost like 10 kids who were homeless who ended up in different states. But it's possible that they'll come back, but they don't have the money. To get back.
How many students are you serving currently who are homeless?
I didn't look at the list today, but it was creeping up into the 80s, which is high for this time of year. We closed out last year with 122 that were enrolled, and they continue to get
10% of our population.
It's 10%, absolutely, and it has been consistently, and the state average is closer to 5.
So it's significant here. It's a significant issue impacting our school district.
Very significant. And there's kids that aren't identified as well, families that aren't identified, because nobody wants that stigma.
Which is why we're thankful that we're actually feeding all of our students this year, breakfast and lunch, without a fee.
It's such a big deal. We hear kids say, well, the reason I went to school is because I was hungry, and then of course the relationships and everything build, but oftentimes that's what gets a kid out the door too, when they're living with so much trauma.
Well,
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
For the students who are attending and don't have a stable food situation, getting food is incredibly important for their education too, because I know I'm not at my best when I'm hungry, and that's just missing a meal hungry.
I know. It's so true. Luckily, this community is pretty generous with food. And, a lot of the community programs didn't fill that gap of at school. So now that all kids are being fed, it's huge.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Yeah, Gail, this is more of a notes for next time than a question I'd like to have answered today, but just if you learn of ways that our district could be more actively involved in finding solutions for the housing problem, would you just draw those to our attention in a future meeting or via email? I'd really love to know if there are specific solutions that the district could be tied to.
Absolutely. The new city planner of Langley would love to be invited to one of these meetings to speak if that interests you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Gail, before you go, thank you for doing that.
Hi, Damien.
Hi, I might have like 3 things for you. One would be, I'd love to attend the next one that you go to, if there's another one happening in Langley. If there isn't, then I understand that too. But if there is, I would love to go to that because, I mean, there's one elephant in the room, which I've heard over the course of time, which is like an incentive to open up affordable housing by an incentive of not taxing people that have Airbnbs to get them to possibly start renting them out on a more full-time basis. I'm curious if that was discussed by anybody at the county at any of these meetings, as well as there, if the city of Langley is actually looking at rezoning to make affordable housing, such as more apartment complexes or something, since they are on sewer and so forth, if that is also part of the conversation. And so I'm going to go look at that big chart that you have for to see everything that's in there. I shouldn't say chart, but you know what it is.
Yeah, do take a look
I couldn't get the word PowerPoint out of my mind.
at PowerPoint, and there's a white paper too. So there's 150
So,
pages
yeah,
for you.
I'm curious to know that what all the possibilities are being looked at, because I'm sure everybody knows that 10 years ago we fought hard to keep Langley Middle School as a school, and all of our contracts there, and you're very well aware of it because you do that. They are designed so that if we do need that back as a school, we have a daylight clause in there, escape clause in there that allows us to take it back. So I don't want to get down that road too much where people start thinking that the school district is a viable piece of property when we do have other issues at hand that pertain to that. So I'm just curious what the whole big picture is before everybody focuses right at Langley Middle School, or I should say the community center now.
Thank you.
I could actually even go back and say Langley High School, but I mean, whatever. But yeah, so if I could go, I would love the invite.
Okay, so it did disband. It was just two forums is what they really called it, and it was about needs identification. Zoning is definitely a rezoning is definitely a solution being discussed. It didn't necessarily end up being, there wasn't a work group that came together around that after the fact. And part of the innovative using school property conversation comes from there being people involved in that group that have experienced that in other states. I wouldn't say there's an active pursuit right now trying to persuade the school district to give that property over to affordable housing. But I wanted to make note of it because many of the links that I provided for you show that is something that has been done in other places.
Thank you, Gail. Like I was saying, that elephant of, there's so many Airbnb properties out there that could be used for year-round housing. I think that's a viable discussion. Well, if they do open it back up and they come together as a group again, I would welcome an invite. Thank you.
You bet. And there's ad hoc too, if you really want to get involved.
Thank you, Damien, for the reminder on those contracts. That's an important thing for us to keep in mind also as these discussions come back to the school board. Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Just
Thank
thank you,
you very
Gail,
much.
for supporting our students that are experiencing homelessness. 1 in 10 is a lot. And I appreciate the dedication that you have to them.
It really is. You're welcome. Thank you. I hope I touched on the things that you wanted to hear. It was a lot of information, so I boiled it down to what I thought was most relevant.
I definitely appreciate the synthesis. Yeah, I will probably go through and read those 80-page papers because I'm a nerd, but not having to do it right away is fantastic.
Good.
Getting that top level overview, and also the reminder that almost 10% of our students are experiencing homelessness is an incredibly valuable thing for us to remember, and to think about how that impacts not just their home situation, but also their social emotional health and their academic capabilities. It's very hard to study at home when you're in one of the situations that you described.
Yeah, or even to feel hopeful or have goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't think to include it here because I was thinking about Langley affordable housing, but I have some data charts put together really specific about the grades of our students, their mobility, and I can share that with you all.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be valuable for us to look at. I would give you time to put that stuff together. So at a future meeting, I think that'd be a great thing for us to look at, especially as we're working through our efforts to find student populations that we can provide more support for in order to provide equity of access to education.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Anything from either of the student reps that you want to chime in on or ask questions about?
I think it's an important topic to talk about and discuss and actually find solutions. I think I found it very informative. So thank you. And the statistic, the 10%, roughly 10%. I think that's not what I expected. So I think, and I'm curious, does that go up or down? Or is that more stable?
It's different students and families, but we've been between 8.5% and 10% over the last 4 or 5 years. And that's even, with kids with mobility, with people leaving the district. So I'd say it's a trend. I'd love to find ways for students to really engage in awareness about the population, primarily to make to have it be less stigma-free so that students feel comfortable reporting what their living situation is so that they can get the help, especially at the high school level.
I can talk with some of the clubs about doing something like that.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank
Really
you.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for that informative presentation. I was unaware of the 10% statistic. And it's hard knowing that my peers are experiencing that. So I'm glad that the board is addressing this. And again, like Sol said, I think it's important to reach out to resources within the school to see how we can support these students.
Thank you, Audrey. Oh, Brooke's muted.
Brooke, you muted.
Brooke, you are muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just saying thank you for the presentation and for all the information for answering our questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And we will now move on to public comment. Before we open things up and I start reading response, I just want to run through the rules again. All comments must be accompanied by the speaker's name and location. The school board will not usually respond to comments beyond thanking the speaker for sharing their opinion. This is the community's opportunity to address the school board. If you would like to have more of a conversation, email or arranging a personal meeting email is definitely the best way to do that. Alternatively, if it's something that's coming up on a board workshop agenda, that's a fantastic time to have a conversation about what's on that agenda. Each speaker will have no more than 5 minutes. We'll aim for no longer than 45 minutes of public comment. Just as if we were in person, those online will be limited to a single comment to be addressed to the board, because again, we don't want this to get into a full-on discussion, because that's not what the purpose of the public comment, particularly if it turns into a discussion between people in the community. This is a chance for the community to address the board. If you've made more than one comment, I will try to, when I'm reading it, I will scan through the other comments to see if you've made another one, and I'll try to read them all together. It is in that case, all the continued comments will be read up to the 5-minute time limit. It is inappropriate to use these comments to make derogatory personal remarks. To quote our policy number 1400, the board recognizes the distinction between uncivil discourse, which it will not tolerate, and comments about the board, district, and/or staff that are negative yet still civil in nature. Myself or whoever else is reading will attempt to edit out any derogatory comments, but retain the general content of the comment. If the commenter believes that I or whoever is reading the comment has not done has not maintained the general content, general direction of the comment, please let us know and we can address that. You can attack an idea, but not a person. Don't worry, I'm not going to go into my example because I've done it the last 5 or 6 meetings, and I need to find a new one if I'm going to keep doing examples. Okay.
Do you want a timer? Do you want me to set a timer? Or you've got one?
I've got one.
Okay.
That's the wonder of cell phones. Okay, so I'm going to go through and go to the first one. Gwendy Hastings, Freeland. After the last meeting, when my questions were not read or answered, I luckily was able to get them answered by staff at my son's school, even though I'd been told it was a board decision. I do have a question, possibly a recommendation. I know I've asked this and suggested this at previous meetings, but I do not apologize for my repetition. There have been a couple of emails that went out about committees starting back up. I don't know why they were stopped, because I feel we could have used that time to do brainstorming to be further ahead as a district. It would be great if there was attention put to the committees, because this is a great way for people to bring input and come up with ideas and solutions on ways to improve our district if they are utilized correctly. If there was a spot on the agenda to give an update on the committees, that would be great. What I have seen before is each board member would oversee a committee and they would give a brief update, just a suggestion. Another comment from Gwendy. I stay on loop and attend meetings that are working with the city of Langley. Yes, the city is talking about rezoning. They're looking at property currently, and there's a conversation about workforce housing. I would encourage people to attend the Port of South Whitby meetings. They're currently talking about starting the conversation about workforce housing now. Thank you for sharing that information about the Port of South Whitby. And I think it's a fantastic idea to get some updates on the committees once they get started back up again. I know that several of the committees that I was a member of previously have started trying to schedule times. So I know that that is underway right now. Laura Rookstool, Langley. Sorry, I need to reset the timer real quick. Laura Rookstool, Langley. Why don't the children in our schools trade in their desks for restaurant tables? Children are at much less risk for COVID, yet adults and children during non-school hours are able to sit next to each other and eat and chat and interact with staff, all without masks, in a warm room, windows and doors closed, while patronizing a restaurant. Meanwhile, our children are forced to stay 3 feet apart, wear face diapers all day long, and sit and try to learn in cold rooms with the windows open. Also, while affordable housing is an important issue for our community, I don't see how it is the work of the school board. Our buildings are in disrepair, our student test scores are mediocre, divisiveness is encouraged, and bullying is still taking place in our schools. These are things that the school board should be making a priority. I will note that the masking and distancing is, I believe that this distancing is state law. It is certainly guidelines from the Department of Health, and the masking is a mandate. But thank you very much for sharing your opinion. Maureen Green, Clinton. Housing has been like this for the 25 years I've lived here. Trailers, mobile homes, and nice homes, and all kids play together. People help each other out. All areas have the same problems in the Northwest and everywhere in the US. This cannot be an excuse for why the district is losing children. Look at the fact you're putting politics in our schools and not spending more time educating the children. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Betsy Hofius, Clinton. Other districts have donated surplus property for developers to construct housing for homeless families attending their schools. Could this happen on South Whitby? That's certainly something that could be discussed as this continues to be discussed. I know that Damien brought up some of the requirements built into the contracts at the community center. Thank you for sharing that. That's all the comments we have right now. I'll wait a minute or two to see if we have any more. But that's what we have thus far. And I know that we do have 40 attendees, so I expect we'll get some more in. And Lisa Pesic, Clinton. This question concerns the board stance on concerned parents. Does the South Whitby School District Board consider parents who question specific curriculum such as CRT as domestic terrorists? How does the board respond to the National School Board Association statement that compared concerned parents to domestic terrorists? How does the board respond to those allegations being rescinded this week? This is not a time for discussion or debate. This is a time for sharing of concerns and ideas. So thank you for sharing your concerns on that issue. Jen Knox, Clinton. Thank you for the update on homelessness. How long can the school support the free lunches? Dr. Moshe, if you could fact check me on this, but I believe that it is state sponsored at this point for us to provide them.
It is through the end of this school year at this time.
Stina Wenzik, Clinton. I heard Dr. Moshe say that 10% of students are homeless. Does this mean South Whitby has 800 students enrolled? Did I understand that right? Just the
That's
clarification.
not accurate. No, we have, well, Dan will do enrollment, so you can see exactly how many we have. What I was talking about was when Gail said we had 120 students last year. That was 10%. It's actually slightly under 10%, but that's what I was referring to.
Okay, that's what we have in the queue. Again, I'll give it a few minutes since last time we got a few more in. We do very much appreciate hearing comments and opinions and ideas from the community. So thank you for taking the time to comment. If anyone is working on a comment, if you could just drop a note in the Q&A real quick, just so that we can know that you're working on it. Otherwise, we will move on. Okay, Candice Tkachuk, Greenbank. I appreciate the steadfast way that the board puts students at the center and supports their learning in a variety of ways, whether in addressing homelessness or ways to make learning happen that equips the students for the world we are living in. Thank you for sharing the opinion. Olivia Batcher, Clinton. This is more a comment versus a question. First, Gail, I appreciate your incredible hard work regarding homelessness on South Whitby. I hope we all volunteer more time to help solve that problem. You're working on your second part. I'll hold off then, and you can. I'll read it as you get there. And I appreciate that it is more of a comment versus a question, as that's what this is aimed at. Rose Hughes, Langley, a clarification about Langley's housing. Most residential zones have just been upzoned and we have restrictions on short-term rentals. The committee does continue working on housing affordability. Thank you for sharing that update. Thank you very much, or clarification rather. Since we do have significant time, if the board is okay with it, I'll allow secondary comments from other folks. Since we don't have an equity issue in that some people are in person, some people are away. Any concerns there? Okay, then I'll go on and read more from some folks. Laura Rookstool Langley. Since some of the children appear to be living in less than ideal circumstances, why is the school feeding them Fruit Loops and unripe fruit for breakfast? I can't speak to the exact meals provided. Yeah, thank you for sharing that concern. Yes. Jen Knox, Clinton, do we have any financial restriction when it comes to expanding more clubs at the high school? I don't know the answer to that question. Again, this is the time for comments to the board. Since we have these here, we can certainly try to respond to them, but let's try to move forward. Jen, if you will send that in to Dr. Moshe, she can respond to that.
There's a quick answer to that, Brooke. I'm happy to answer it. There is no financial restriction. Typically, clubs support themselves.
Yep. Jennifer Sisney, Greenbank. If 10% of our students are homeless, why aren't they provided lunch and breakfast more nutritious? The meals are pathetic. Again, thank you for sharing that concern. And Lisa Pesic, Clinton. Given the concern of the children experiencing homelessness, there has been long concern that children are not getting adequate school lunches. Are hot lunches available? I can actually note from my personal experience that there are hot lunches available at the elementary school. Thank you for sharing that concern. I know that my daughter has those available.
It actually brings up a great topic that's coming up at a future meeting. We have a group of folks who are working on food service and have been for a couple of years. They took a hiatus during COVID. I met with them this week, and we're starting with the wellness policy again. We have worked on our meal service. I actually am very thankful for the work that Rachel Matthews has done. There's been much improvement in the food service. However, this year, we're really having difficulty with supply line like everyone else. And so despite having gone to scratch cooking and menu improvement, we're struggling. So that's where we are, but we're doing some work on it and expect to be moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that they were doing some great work on that food committee efforts early on. So it's wonderful to hear that that's resuming.
Can I just briefly add a perspective that I have from my experience as a parent in the district is that education about food and where food comes from is particularly strong in our district because of the presence of the school farm program. And although it doesn't address the questions that were raised tonight, I think it's worth revisiting the topic of how our school farms integrate with and supplement the nutrition program in our kitchens.
Happy to put that on a future agenda.
Yeah. We've got the second part of Olivia Bachelor's comment. A couple weeks ago, I decided to help throw a homecoming dance for our students, an all-inclusive dance. The amount of help I received from parents, adults, and students was incredible. People from many backgrounds and with many different beliefs helped. I made it clear that politics were not to be involved as this was an effort to do something for the kids. I can gladly say that we were able to provide a fantastic evening with lots of laughter and dancing. Thank you for sharing that and for the effort you took in that. I know that a lot of students had a lot of fun that night at either or both of the events that they attended. Again, I'm going to note that this is not a time to address questions to the board. Oh, sorry, we've got some more from Olivia there. Thank you for continuing that. I'll continue that, reading that comment. I was, of course, worried about COVID, but all students were masked and we had plenty of airflow. We provided water and food and it was such a wonderful evening. I was sad that it was discussed in a class by a teacher asking if this was being put on by non-vaccinated unmasked parents. I typically wear 2 masks at a time and have had 3 vaccinations. I'm very sad it was discussed that way. Thank you for sharing that experience. I'm sorry that you felt that you were wronged in that description. Okay. Again, I do want to note that this is not a time to ask questions. If you do have questions, you can send them into the board, the superintendent, or both. So Valerie Hagnes Langley. I've always been curious how many families choose non-public schooling in part because of before and after care that is provided. Just a thought as to why families might choose to go elsewhere. Also regarding food choices, being in school, I've witnessed a lot of students that only choose or even ask for the sugared cereal instead of choosing other options. Thank you for sharing that.
Brooke, I'd like to point out if people were able to comment on their own, they would still be making questions to the board. You don't have to answer them. We don't have to answer them, but there
Very true.
isn't
Very true. Yep.
any restriction as to
Yep.
civil discourse as far as asking questions.
Yep.
And a lot of times in the past, people would ask questions and Dr. Mocha would actually say, I'll get back to you by an email or send your question to me by an email as well. But
Yep.
just
Yep. Thank you for the reminder. Annalisa Pesic Clinton, can the board speak to how it spends its federal COVID funds or direct me to where I can find this information? And has the district applied for the federal grant that will extend these funds into 2023? That sounds like
Yes,
one.
that
that-
she direct her questions to Dan Pullman. He can answer them in detail.
Thank you. Diana Sandoval, Freeland. I appreciate that the district is working to meet the needs of students who are homeless. Meeting their basic needs as well as their social and emotional needs will go a long way to providing the foundation they need to optimize their capacity to learn and grow. Thank you. Sunny Sides, Clinton. I still don't understand why we can't have a Zoom video and mic on for our comments. This is so wrong. Thank you for sharing that opinion. Okay, there's another one coming in. Annalisa Pesic is asking to repeat whom the question should be directed. Dan Pullman. Dan Pullman is the one to direct questions about how the ESSER and ESSER 2 funds are being spent.
He will be presenting tonight, so you'll get his contact information.
Yep. Okay, speaking of which, it has not yet been 45 minutes, but I'd like to ask the board's permission, since we've answered a significant everything in the queue, as well as multiple comments or questions from several people, to move on to the rest of our business. I'm seeing nodding heads. Okay, let's do that. We will now move on to new business. First up is Memorandum 2122-12, approval of school improvement plans. Do I have a motion in regards to this?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any comments or discussion or questions on this? I'd just like to note, I really appreciated the detail that went into this and how well we could see the goals that the board gave to the superintendent flow through to a building level and to a classroom level. I was very impressed with that. I love to see the way it built on what was presented 18 months before, and continued improvement in that, transforming the leadership in that regard to demonstrate that capability and that growth. So thank you very much. Anything from any of the board members? Of note, when I say that, that very much includes our student representatives, if they have any comments. Okay, then all those in favor of approving Memorandum 2122-12, approval of the school improvement plans, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2122-12, approval of the school improvement plans has been approved. Next up, Memorandum 21-22-13, approval of the South Whitby School District coaches contract. Do I have a motion?
I'll move. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or comments? Dr. Moshe, could you address your thoughts on this, or do you have anything to add?
Actually is a brand new contract. Our coaches several years ago sought approval from Kirk to become a union. And this year, for the first time, they approached the district to negotiate a contract. And we met a couple of times and achieved a contract. We're really pleased with the work we've done with the coaches and happy to have the approval of the board on the contract.
Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. All those in favor of Memorandum 21-22-13, approval of the South Whitby School District coaches contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 21-22-13, approval of the South Whitby School District coaches contract has been approved. Memorandum 21-22-14, approval of the contracts with SEIU for 2021 through 2023. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Okay, motion and second. Any conversation, questions, discussion? Okay. Dr. Moshe, anything you want to say on it?
Just again, as the board knows, we approved this tentative agreement before school even started. It took a bit of logistics for the group to ratify so that they could all meet in one place, but they have ratified the contract unanimously, and I'm hoping the board will approve it.
Okay. Give a moment for any comments or concerns. Okay. All those in favor of Memorandum 21-22-14, approval of the contracts with SEIU for 2021 through 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 21-22-14, approval of the contracts with SEIU for 2021 through 2023 has been approved. Next up, Memorandum 21-22-15, approval of the contract with the Principals Association. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Dr. Moshe, do you have any input on this one?
Only that it's Principals Recognition Month. I'm happy that we're have this contract up for approval. They're an outstanding group of people, and I recommend that the board approve their contract.
Yeah, I would again like to thank them for the hard work of directing those school improvement plans. And I hardly endorse this. So all those in favor of Memorandum 21-22-15, approval of the contract with the Principals Association, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 21-22-15, approval of the contract with the Principals Association has been approved. Memorandum 21-22-16, approval of the infield material for South Whitby High School baseball fast pitch board brief. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any conversation or discussion about this?
I'm really happy that we're addressing the fast pitch field. It has irrigation, as you know, and this will really improve its playability. And I also want to just take a moment to thank all of the folks who have come out to volunteer their time to also work on improving that field so that it's playable and a place that we can be proud of.
Yeah, I know a lot of team members, coaches, and families and community members really contribute to the upkeep of both of those fields. So Yeah, I echo that. Thanks very much. And I'm excited to see what will happen between the irrigation and this. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of Memorandum 2122-16, approval of the infield material for the Southerby High School baseball fast pitch, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, and now we will move on to the policy that we discussed at the last board workshop, that series there. So Memorandum 2122-17, approval of the policy 2255 update, alternative learning experience courses, essential update. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion to be had?
As a student who during COVID took a online course that was not provided by the school in person, I can tell you from personal experience that I really appreciate the opportunity to branch out and be able to follow my interests that are outside of just what are offered in the classrooms. So because of that, I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Also want to take a moment to thank both Kayla and Susie for the innovative design. Spokane Virtual Academy has certainly helped a lot of students, but our ALE program has brought in students to our district who may not have otherwise attended. And that's really exciting. You'll see the numbers in the enrollment report tonight. So both of these folks are they're innovative and an asset to an outstanding team.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. All those in favor of Memorandum 2122-17, approval of the policy 2255 update, alternative learning experience courses essential update, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2122-17, approval of the policy 2255 update, alternative learning experience courses essential update has been approved. Memorandum 2122-18, approval of the update to policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And a second, excellent. These are the ones where we've just gone in and discussed the timing on when we are going to review the policies themselves rather than the implementation of them. And that will be at our January workshop each year, starting this coming year. Any other comments or questions on this?
Just to be clear, this is to approve a plan to review the policy in January?
Yes.
Got it.
Well, more than that, it's to approve putting in the policy that it will be that this policy will be reviewed every year.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
No, just thanks for doing that.
Then all those in favor of Memorandum 2122-18, approval of the update to policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, Memorandum 2122-18, approval of the update to policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited has been approved. Memorandum 2122-19, approval of the update to policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Do I have a motion?
Move to. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any comments or discussion? This is once again just putting into place the annual review of the policy. Okay. Then all those in favor of Memorandum 2122-19, approval of the update to policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2122-19, approval of the update to policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying has been approved. Memorandum 2122-20, approval of the update to policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Again, this is the same deal, just making sure that we review these important policies every year. Any other comments or questions? Okay, then all those in favor of Memorandum 2122-20, approval of the update to policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2122-20, approval of the update to policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited has been approved. The last one on our list for tonight, Memorandum 2122-21, approval of the community center theater skylight repair. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or commentary on this?
Yes, Brooke, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion and vote as it affects my workplace in the civilian world.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
I guess I would just add that this is the kind of repair that prevents long-term ongoing damage. So it feels significant.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay. All those in favor of Memorandum 21-22 or 2122-21, approval of the community center theater skylight repair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2122-21, approval of the community center theater skylight repair has been approved. That's all of our new business. So we'll now move on to financial and enrollment report with Mr. Poolman. Take it away.
Yes, good evening. So we'll start with enrollment. This is enrollment as of October 1, and we do take enrollment counts to the state at the first of each month. So this is our basic education, our in-person program. We have roughly 1,083 FTE across the district. In our ALE program, which we had spoken a little bit about, we have about 79 FTE, so it's becoming quite substantial. Last year, we were under 10 for most of the year, so it has grown dramatically. And most of that is due to the local ALE program that we have started for the K-8 students. If we look at the total enrollment for district by adding those two together, we are at 1,161.47 for the month. You'll notice that's almost 17 up from September and about 6 over what we had budgeted for the year. So it's a very positive place enrollment-wise for us to be at this time. And then we can break it down by grade levels. You can see what that looks like. At the K4, there are currently, and we use averages because, as I remind people, we report our enrollment from September through June. The state averages those monthly amounts, and then that's where they come up with the actual enrollment number they fund us from. So we will continue to have an average as we move throughout the year. But the current average is about 1383 in grades K to 4, 178 in 5, 6, 186 in 7, 8, about 381 in grades 9, 12, and about 25 at the 9, 12 swap program, which gives us an average of 1153. We budgeted 1147, so you can see we're about 6 above what we had actually budgeted. And if you have questions, feel free to stop me as I go through these. You can see our general ed program is up in October. Our ALE program has increased. The CTE grew a little bit, and our special education program also grew in the month of October. And on the upper left is just kind of a breakdown by grade levels and see, how many kids we have in each of those grade groupings.
Hey, Dan, I did have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, is there a funding difference between virtual classes and in-class?
Yes. In-person basic education classes receive a little over $10,000 per student, and for ALE, it's a little over, I think, $8,800. So there is a difference in there, and that's predominantly because they believe if you have an ALE program, you don't have the structural costs of operating buildings and all those type things. So there is a bit of a difference in the enrollment numbers.
Thank you.
Yeah, a couple things to point out. Up in the upper left corner, each year I tried to calculate at the beginning of the year what projection we need in order to get to our funding number, the 1147. And so I use a 3-year estimate of what happened in previous years to try to anticipate that change, because it changes throughout the year. So you'll notice that in September, we were below the 1165, which was our target of where we needed to be in order to get to the estimate. But in October, we're actually slightly above that line, which is right where I'd like to be at this point, because that, if we continue this trend or we grow, that'll get us to that budgeted amount that we're looking at. And the lower right-hand corner is a couple things I'd like to point out. The first is the red dotted line, and that's the difference between what we budgeted and our actual. You'll see in September, we're 0.2% below our budget amount. By October, we're 1.2% above our budgeted amount. And then the blue line, with the dotted line on the bottom, is the change from the previous year. So we started out 3.2% below last year's number in September, but in October, we dropped that gap down to 1.8%. So we're actually moving in a very positive direction. As you probably know, September starts a new fiscal year for us. We run from September through August 31st of each year. So we are 1/12 of the way through the month at the end of September. Our revenue, quickly, it's about 6.6% of our budget, 1.4 million. The one thing that does occur in September is we receive no federal funding, because federal funding is on a reimbursement basis, where we spend the money and the following month we get reimbursed. So October will be our first federal payment. Our expenditures year to date at 8.3% are about what we would anticipate, and it's a little over $1.8 million. Revenue is pretty flat in almost everything except for state funding in September. The property taxes don't come due to the end of this month, so we start seeing that money coming in November and December. And there's no federal income at all in September. The one thing you do notice about this is that in both the state general purpose and the state special purpose, that our funding level is going down over the years. And the biggest factor of that, which we've talked about probably more than you want to hear, is regionalization. It drops by 2% each year, and that's directly tied to the amount of money that we receive from the state. So that's one of the reasons, that combined with enrollment numbers, that we see that reduction in those two areas. On the expenditure side of it, both our payroll costs and our MSOCs, which are the non-employee materials, supplies, and services, are about 8.3% of our budget. It is higher than last year, which was a non-typical year, but it's very similar to what you would see in 1920. Normally, we are in that mid 8% range this time of the year. So it's where we anticipate it would be. We also looked at encumbrances, and encumbrances are the costs that we know we have to pay for. So we have contracts, and all the benefits that go with those contracts are in the system. The only thing in payroll that we don't have included is going to be subcosts, because we don't know what that is until we create that expense throughout the year. But our payroll with those encumbrances are about 96%. Our supplies, services, travel at about 50%, which puts us at about 89.7% of our total budget for expenditures at this time. And again, if you look at how we spend our money, you'll see that the largest three sections on the two bottom graphs are going to be salaries and benefits. Blue is certificated salaries, red is classified salaries, and green is the benefits that go with that. And we're currently at about 84% of our budget is in those three categories. Budget status report. This is just a recap of the revenue and the expenditure. And you can see when we look at the top part, which is the revenue, there's very little so far in local property taxes, local support, that almost all our money in September comes from the state, which is based upon enrollment estimates. And again, from September through December, we get paid on the estimated enrollment that we submitted to OSBI in the spring. And then January, they will true up that funding based on what our actual enrollment is. We'll continue to do that through June. The bottom part is the expenditures, and it's just a breakdown by program of how we spend our money, federal, special, regular, instruction, special education, et cetera, down the line. You kind of see where that breakdown is. Bottom line is our ending fund balance, which started at 5.2 million last month, is now at almost 4.8 million. So you can see that we're spending more currently than we're actually generating. And that will happen until the levy collections come in. Another way of looking at it is the balance sheet, and that's just the same information, but in a different format. Basically, it's your assets. How much money do we have? What's our liabilities? And what's our bottom line? And it's about $4.8 million. The other funds, let's quickly talk about those. Capital Projects Fund, we currently have a fund balance of about $2 million in there. During COVID, it really slowed down some of the construction processes that we were working on. It was really difficult to get contractors to come out and do things. So we have a strong fund balance, and then we'll have a levy collection on top of that. So we anticipate to have quite a few projects, which JJ had spoken to at our last meeting, that we'll be doing in the coming year. Debt service only has $651. There's no payment due until December, and that comes from a transfer from the Capital Projects Fund. The student body fund is actually growing. For a while there's a concern about the level of this fund, but it is actually increasing, so that's good to see. And our transportation vehicle fund currently has $310,000 in there, but as the end of October, it will have $5. 2 buses showed up, and we have paid for those to the extent of about $310,000. And the private purse trust fund is just funds that have been donated. The district is a custodian of for scholarships, and most of that money is required to remain intact, and we just spend the interest on it. So that's where we are. If you want to reach me, you can do it through our website. There is southwestwednet.edu has all of our information on it. If you want to reach me directly, my email address is on the website, but I'll give it to you now. It's dpoolman@sw.wednet.edu. And I'd be happy to answer any financial questions that anybody might have. Does the board have any questions that I could answer for them at this time?
I have one, Dan. Not really a question as much as maybe a suggestion or recommendation that if we're going to be spending some fund balance down, could you at next month's meeting, based on the budget and based on what our fund balance percentage is supposed to be, show that as well as what the current balance is, so that we can see if there is or how it is affecting our fund balance changes?
I would be happy to do that. The one thing that we'll have to look at is that, there's a question earlier about federal funds. We have received quite a bit of federal funds that we will be able to use over a 2-year period, which is going to have an effect on fund balance. Because when we originally talked about, our financial position, it wasn't including those federal dollars and how we're spending those dollars. So I'm happy to do it, but that will be part of that conversation as far as how does that affect in the short term fund balance. It's not a long-term change to our position, but it does, I guess briefly, I would say it slows down that use of our fund balance because we do have those $0.
I just know from history what happened in the past. Just want to be able to kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that doesn't ever happen again. And I trust you wholeheartedly, but I think it's good to be transparent and let us all see it too, since we are dealing with it a little bit right now.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that information. Not a problem. Yeah.
I very much appreciate that suggestion, that request, because as you said, we all trust Dan very much, but it's also our job to keep on top of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and along that line, we will start the budget process earlier this year, probably at the end of 2021, rather than waiting to the spring of 2022, which is a normal time to start the budget process. So we will start having those conversations much sooner about what is the outlook and what do we anticipate the financial picture look like.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions? I know it's a lot to take in for all of the board members, particularly on your first meeting as a student representative on the board. So we've got a very good person in charge of our finances in Mr. Pullman, and I really appreciate both the hard work he puts in to keep the district in a good place and also the clarity with which he presents the information to us. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Woman.
Okay. I think that's it for you, Dan. Thank you very much. We'll move on to student board members report. And again, Saul's got one prepared, but I know that he's going to ask Audrey if you have anything to add at the end. So go ahead, Saul, all yours.
All right, thank you. So I figured I'd start with the COVID situation since that's the most topical. And we have actually really good COVID news, which is that we have had in the last 2 weeks, 0 new COVID cases relating from schools or any of the campuses across the district. So really, really good news. That is keeping in mind that we have been testing at the high school, I know at least, between 10 and 50 students per day. So that's significant. And because of that, we can be sort of more reassured with the COVID situation, hopefully going forward. We have to, of course, stick to the current protocols and everything just to make sure that nothing is going to happen, but it's good news. And that is keeping in mind that we have had our homecoming events. We had 2 major homecoming events. That was brought up earlier, but no COVID relating to that as far as we know. And because of that, we're hoping that as an ASB, we can plan more events like that and do it in a safe way and do it in a way that students can have fun while at the same time not get COVID. So really good news about that. Homecoming was a big success this year. It was difficult planning a dance, sorry, not a dance, an event. It was difficult planning an event and a spirit week and everything with COVID, but we pulled it off. There was actually 2 homecoming events and they were at the exact same time. So in the future, we're going to try to work together with other parents, cooperate so that they don't end up being at the exact same time. It might make it difficult, but that's aspirational. ASB has been very busy so far. We've been working with not enough time. We have had a few advisory periods to meet, but apart from that, we really haven't had a good chance to have a good chunk of time to really meet and discuss a lot of different things. We have had a few committees set up. So a banner committee, an equity committee, a publicity committee, and an event planning committee within ASB, all within the high school ASB, so that we can more efficiently get things done, given time constraints. Audrey, do you want to add anything to that before I tell them about the specific committees?
Yeah, so I was actually one of the people organizing the school organized homecoming, and we actually had 250 people attend, which was really good. It brought in a lot of funding for ASB. It was difficult seeing a lot of students leave for the alternative homecoming, but I do recognize that there was COVID protocol that we had to recognize as an ASB, such as not allowing guests from outside the district. It's hard seeing that students couldn't invite their friends from outside the district, but we did have to respect district policy.
Yeah, and the homecoming was planned by the sophomore ASB, and they did a really good job. And it was actually their first high school event, major event, because of COVID. So the sophomores, they were working off of no real experience with those kinds of events. So we helped them out a little bit, and they did a great job. So we're really proud of them. ASB's banner committee has big news. We decided it was a student vote, and we decided that we were going to, we've been meeting regularly to try to address the issue of the banners in front of the high school. They've been pretty controversial, so we want to make sure that it's a student decision and that it was made by an ASB committee. So the ASB committee voted to put the Black Lives Matter banner up in front of the tennis courts and to continue with the current schedule regarding the monthly banners that relate to the monthly equity themes. So that decision, there was a lot of debate regarding that decision, but it was something that at the end the committee voted to do. So we will continue to discuss those issues going forward, and we will try to incorporate as many student voices as possible in those kinds of decisions. Clubs. So our clubs this year have been in doing things that I don't think we've had clubs doing so much ever, as far as I know, in the school's history. Brooke, you've gone to the school in the early 2000s, so maybe you remember, but I don't think so. I mean, the majority of the high school student body is involved in clubs, and a lot of students are involved in multiple clubs. So we're seeing a lot of interest in that. The Model United Nations Club, which both Audrey and I are a part of, has already attended one Model United Nations conference. Audrey, did you go to that? Did you go to Ejimon?
Yes, I did. So
Go ahead, talk about it.
Okay, so the first conference we attended was Educational Model UN. It was basically kind of like a beginner conference. So we tried drawing in new members from the high school to kind of, give them a little taste of what MUN is. We did go as individual delegates, just that way, since we were going into Seattle and we were around students from other districts, we just wanted to ensure, COVID liability. So I went with another student and we had a really fun time. And we are actually attending another conference coming up called Pacific MUN, which is virtual and in person. I think we have about 5 members already signed up.
4 members.
Four. So yeah, we're rolling as a club.
Yeah, PACMUN, so Pacific Model UN, that's a bigger conference. It's regional, so it covers the whole Pacific Northwestern area. So I'm the head delegate for that. So I'll be going onto the mainland with a couple of our other members, and we're going to try to bring back some awards and represent South Woodby. So I hope you guys cheer us on. What else do we have? So the Mental Health Awareness Club put on a red ribbon week along with the Random Acts of Kindness Club. And that was a drug prevention campaign to raise awareness. So we all got really cool sunglasses to go along with that. And I think we learned a lot about that. So you got your sunglasses too, right, Audrey?
I did. They're pretty nice.
All right. Yeah, we all got them. So the Random Acts of Kindness Club has their Kindness Rocks Awards. That's picking out specific students to highlight what they've been doing and their random acts of kindness. And then those specific students get put on the TVs all around the school just to recognize them. So I think that's really good news in terms of that club. The Spanish club has been putting on a refugee drive for the Afghan refugees. So all of the first period classes are competing to see which class can bring in the most items for the Afghan refugees. So really good work there. And then we have Sparkle Cheer. They're starting to actually cheer at the games. So we've got really good news there too. Any other club news, Audrey?
Yeah, so there's also Change the Cycle Club, which was originally known as Days for Girls, but there's actually a name change to just be more inclusive of transgender and non-binary students. Currently, we're holding a research project on period poverty in different regions of the world, and then planning to hopefully, last year we went into middle school health classes and gave a few presentations on period poverty. So we're hoping to do that again this year.
Yeah, I think that we're missing a couple clubs there, but they're still getting going, and we're looking forward to continuing to see a lot of great work coming out of the different clubs. School spirit, this ties right into school spirit. We've seen a lot of not only representation in events within school and the different clubs and things, but also the games, both all of the games, really, football and the different sports. We've seen really great turnout at the games, and girls soccer actually won the league district champions. So they won the league, and they get to go to not state yet, but they're going to the playoffs for state. So we're gonna all cross our fingers and support them. So yeah, that's definitely exciting. Friday is blue and white day, so we need to remember to show up in blue and white, Audrey. Leadership class, they have their Boost Everyone project, and the Boost Everyone project is to help support not only just the football team, and the football team gets a lot of attention, rightfully, but also the other important sports team this fall. So everybody gets some boosting, I guess. And then future problem solving. That's something they're working on in the leadership class. Leadership class is already starting to plan prom, which we're hoping we can have a nice prom this year. We didn't really get to have a prom last year, so it's really important that we get, at least for my class, I know my class got denied our prom last year, so we're going to try to put on a really good prom. And then we've got the Veterans Day Assembly coming up too. So leadership's pretty busy, and ASB is busy as well. Do you have anything to add to that, Audrey?
I just think it's super impressive that we have so many teams that are ranked highly in the district, especially coming back from COVID. I mean, it's hard to just do a sport in general, coming back from such a long time stuck at home, but kudos to soccer for being ranked #1. I know volleyball's up there too. A few of the swimmers went to districts, and cross country is districts this weekend, which I'm personally really excited for, along with the football game on Friday.
All right, yeah. Audrey, we're gonna support you guys. We're gonna cheer you on. We're all behind you. So the yearbook we've already started. We've got a lot of good pages already. So we're hoping we can get a really nice yearbook this year, especially because last year the yearbook was put together by just 4 students pretty much. So we're hoping that this year we can come back with a splash when it comes to the yearbook as well. The Falcon's Nest. So the Falcon's Nest is like a student store so that they can get bagels and energy drinks and things like that. I don't know if Audrey, I don't think you were here when they actually had the Falcon's Nest. It was like a store for just getting snacks and things, adhering to nutritional guidelines. But we're hoping to get that going and adhere to the COVID restrictions and everything. And that's something the leadership class is working on right now. So we're really excited about that. And then in terms of, we've got a lot of questions about the school lunches. The school lunches, we've seen an 80% increase since last September in terms of the amount of students getting the school lunches at the high school. That's really good news. We've also seen an about roughly 20% increase from 2 years before. So it's not just after COVID, it's also after before COVID, we're seeing an increase in the amount of students getting school lunches. We won't speak to the quality of the school lunches themselves, the quality, Audrey, we're not talking about the quality, but a lot of students are getting the lunches, and it's a good opportunity for all of us to, I know if there were not school lunches, I wouldn't be eating lunch at school. So it's really good for us to have that. And then is there any other news, Audrey?
Not that I can think of. On the topic of school lunches, last year and the year before I brought my own lunch, but this year I started getting the school lunches. It's just been super convenient. I don't have to worry about punching in my school PIN or worrying about having enough money in my account. And the pizza, I will say the pizza is really good.
Okay, yeah, we got the pizza going, and the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Those are good too. So it's not all unripe fruit. All right. Thank you. Does any members of the board have any questions?
First of all, thank you both for putting that, giving that great overview of what's going on. Saul, thank you for putting it together. Audrey, thank you for jumping in and adding to it where you could. Clubs back in my day, which was actually the late 90s, even further back, weren't as popular as they are today, it sounds like. And I think that's fantastic, because I think that clubs are critical to helping students find their communities within the school. So I'm really glad to hear that. And actually, we have 3 alumni here on the board. Both myself, Marnie, and Damien, who all went through the school system here. So maybe they can approach that clubs and their experiences with clubs as well. Audrey, I know that I'm excited to see districts. Both my dad and I are going to be there at least. I love that the district meet is here. That just, it makes me very happy. Because I know that we've got a great track and we've got a great course and a great opportunity for people schools that often run inside cities to actually get out on the dirt and have some fun with some real hills. Any other board members?
I just want to thank you both for the presentation, Saul for preparing your presentation, and Audrey for being ready to jump in and add some valuable information during your very first meeting. And I wanted to wish you very great luck for this weekend's meet.
Thank you.
We're hoping in the future that Audrey and I will start to coordinate these presentations and hopefully have a larger, more broad presentation. Maybe slides, we'll work on that, but also include not only the high school, but also the other campuses. Mm-hmm. So we can have more of a broad picture and not disproportionately recognize what's going on at the high school. We're both high schoolers, so we've got, mm-hmm. we can't be everywhere at once. We got to attend our classes, but in the future, hopefully we can include more broad information.
Thanks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that having slides would help you'll visualize more. Also, for example, if we have a survey or something, including statistics from that.
We're not going to top Dan, but we can try.
He's an alumni too, you know. And so is Christy or Susie Richards. So, but we won't tell you how far back we go.
So I'm really excited by what the two of you are talking about together here about how to present and how to get information from other parts of the school. So I'm super excited to see what you come up with at the next business meeting. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Moshe, do you have anything for the superintendent's report?
I don't know how to go after that. You guys are awesome. And I will share that you are really showing the district's mission and vision by your actions And I really appreciate that and love having you here. I think it really adds to the board's work. So thank you. As you know, these are our vision, mission, and values. And our goals are here too, but I must have deleted it, but we do have goals. We know that the goals are around transformational leadership, restorative conversations, and of course, improving our students' performance. So I have put together a restorative conversation strategy team, which our students are going to be involved in as well, because we're going to do restorative conversations at all levels. But the strategy team is really about what training do we need. We'll get representation on that strategy team from teachers and admin and our students to find out what kind of training we need as we go throughout the year. You heard about the school improvement plans at the last meeting, so you know all of the work we're doing around student growth. We just finished assessments at a variety of grade levels, and we'll get some results around that. And the superintendent advisory teams, they are in action. So we have 5 teams, in addition to a group working on food service. I met with those folks yesterday, and they're actually going to be between the enrichment and the social, emotional, and culture team, because what they're working on is a wellness policy, which has everything to do with nutrition, physical fitness, and social emotional health. So we will be recruiting at least 1 board member to hopefully be on that team, Andrea, so we can work on a wellness policy and get some, we have some drafts from other districts that we're working on. And then our other groups are going as well, advisory on communication, special education, and Dan and JJ are working on facilities and bond planning. Just a reminder to the board, in December, you will be presented probably in November to talk about it, but in December with information on the levy that goes on in February, which is a renewal of our M&O levy. We will also be talking about a bond, but that vote won't be, if the bond team comes up with a recommendation and the board approves it, that vote won't be likely until a year from now. It takes quite some time to get all of that put together. In terms of COVID, Sol did a nice update on where we are. Safety is our first priority. Those mitigation strategies will continue. We will continue using masks and social distancing. We are doing, as we heard, lots of testing. We are involved in test and return, which means if we have a student who may have been a close contact, certain number of days go by. If they test and are negative for their COVID test, they can return sooner than the 14-day quarantine, which means less time out of school. I have heard from students that they actually, even when they are out, they are able to keep up because of the use of Google Classroom and because of their practice with being in an online environment. So, you know, it's not easy, but they certainly are keeping up. We're going to continue to remind everyone. We've certainly gotten some information that we're not all as diligent about wearing masks as we should be. So we're going to continue those reminders. As you know, there's also a mandate on vaccination. So we are 100% compliant as a staff with that mandate. And you can see that 96% of our staff are fully vaccinated, with 4% receiving an exemption. This is Island County as of today. As you can see, we are still not as high, but we certainly still have cases occurring, and they are in young people. So we know that COVID still exists. We also know that people who are vaccinated are unlikely to be hospitalized or to be experiencing significant issues and death. So we're really pleased that our staff took the initiative to make sure they're vaccinated. We, over time, since the beginning of the school year, we've had 6 cases with students and 2 with staff. So as Sol said, we're doing really well with keeping COVID out of our schools. So I just wanted to give a board a brief update tonight. I didn't really give you any new information, just reiterating how we're moving forward. And any board member questions, concerns, anything I can help with?
No, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you to the staff and the students who have been so conscientious about keeping up with the necessary mitigation factors to keep us all as safe as possible.
And we did hear that vaccination is on its way to approval for young people between the ages of 5 and 11. So we're working with Island County to make the vaccine available. Obviously, it's family choice as to whether or not students are vaccinated, but we want to make it as convenient as possible for folks.
Any comments or questions for Dr. Moshe? Thank you very much. Now, any board reports or comments outside of the normal structure anyone would like to make?
Yeah, Brick, I have one. I've been thinking a lot since our last board meeting where we did the school improvement plans, and you know, JJ's report about the maintenance of the buildings and all of the work that he and his team have been doing has really just stood out to me specifically. And I just want to just publicly say that I am extremely thankful and grateful for the hard work and dedication of that team. I know for me personally, they are some of the most friendly staff members that you will meet in our district. They are kind, they are caring, they love our students. I think of, you know, a couple of years back where we had kind of that unexpected snow dump where we had like 10 or 12 inches, and JJ was out plowing the parking lot, you know, in the snow, trying to just keep things ready and safe for school. And I say that also knowing that they must be feeling a lot of feelings about how valued their work is with some of the narrative going on right now. And I just need to publicly say that I don't feel that way, and that I recognize the budgetary limitations, and I recognize JJ's strategy in how he's looking at how we keep things moving the way that we need to, while also planning for projects that we know need to get done. And so I just need to say to that entire team that I am thankful and grateful for their work ethic and for what they bring to our district. And I hope that they know they have my full support.
Thank you, Andrea. Such an important message. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you all. Thank you to the community who joined in and provided their comments. Again, if you have further questions, you can address them to the board, superintendent, or the appropriate person within the district via email. Thank you all. I will now adjourn this meeting. Thank you all and good night.